The epic Casebook. In which Inspector Carr investigates.
It's quite some weeks since South African newspapers gave prominence to a London court case in which a man was charged with stealing from a large country house inhabited by the parents of the young woman with whom the accused had been living. The publicity this trial received was fully justified, since it exposed a sad and tragic situation all too prevalent throughout the so-called civilized world. Certainly, no parent of teenage girls could have failed to respond to the girls' parents with a feeling of deep compassion and sympathy. Here was a young woman, brought up amongst the comforts of a prosperous home, but more important, given all the care and attention that loving parents could bestow. She was sent to a leading private school for the daughters of professional people, got a good first at Oxford, and within a few years found herself in the dock, being charged, with the man she was living with, of theft. They broke into her parents' house and stole paintings to the value of £150,000. What's more, during the trial, her father mentioned that this young woman had received and squandered something like £120,000 from her doting parents. There was no question of the girl being a victim of a broken home or being deprived of anything that might have turned her into a bitter, amoral dropout. How can a young person, equipped both mentally and physically, as well as financially, become so completely outside the pale of civilized standards and behavior? In fact, if you read the account of the trial, she publicly rejected her parents, poured scorn on everything they represented, and showed not the slightest repentance for her behavior. What went wrong? Where is the sickness in our society that causes such things to happen? I don't know the answer. But while their situations were dissimilar in many aspects, Cynthia Dickinson was a dropout, although this poor female's life ended in an extremely abrupt fashion. She had been murdered. Let me tell you about it. I've called my story The Fall of a Rich Girl. Cynthia Dickinson fell all right. She was thrown from the roof of one of Mayfair's most exclusive apartments. You say the sergeant is convinced that this girl had been murdered?
That's right, sir. The sergeant says there's no question about it, sir.
When did this happen?
Call came through just now, sir. Could have only been a few minutes.
All right, Ops, get through to transport. Tell them I want them to take me to the Royal Plaza. Although the Royal Plaza is now an accepted landmark of the London scene, it was regarded in those days as the ultimate in such luxury. It was the first of the many to follow. Its 30-story building was regarded as a miracle of modern architecture. The Royal Plaza was more than just a building housing apartments. It had its own restaurant, a swimming pool, and the inevitable penthouse. Oh, don't wait, driver.
Very good, sir. You can pick the car.
Yes, that's right.
Sergeant Blake's at Y Division. Body's in the courtyard, sir.
Oh, I see. Well, I was looking out of the car window for signs of a milling crowd and a corpse.
Oh, no, sir.
Well, did she fall into the courtyard?
Yes, sir. As you'll see, there are 4 separate wings to these flats. There's a courtyard and it's got a fountain in the centre.
Anyone with the body?
Yes, I've got a constable guarding the body. There's a police surgeon on his way.
Well, you reported that she fell from the penthouse. Judging by the height of the building, it'd be ridiculous to ask whether you're sure the girl's dead.
It's just a mangled mess, I'm afraid, sir.
But what makes you so sure it's murder and not suicide? There's been a spate of would-be suicides leaping from their windows.
No, this wasn't suicide, sir. Would you like to come through?
All right, lead on.
Well, none of the tenants heard her fall, but that's not surprising, sir.
Why do you say that, Sergeant?
Well, sir, the ground floor and the first floor are taken up with a restaurant and an indoor swimming pool. They've got some fashion shops, sir. Being Sunday morning, there'll be nobody about to hear the noise, sir, except the porter, sir.
Oh.
Well, this door leads into the courtyard, sir.
Oh, dear.
Where can I go? I've got to telephone the letting agents.
Letting agents? Are you the caretaker?
We don't have caretakers here, sir. I'm the porter.
All right, Constable. Remove the sheet. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, it's now 11:20. When did this take place?
Oh, I can tell you that. Not more than 10 minutes ago. I'd just come into the courtyard to water the flower pot over there. Well, it's an urn, really. And there she is, lying there. I touches her, then I lost my nerve and went running into the street. Of course, I thought she'd committed suicide. Police!
Hello, what's the matter? What's going on?
I was running to the police station. Miss Dickinson, 206, the penthouse. She's committed suicide.
Suicide? How? When?
Well, she's lying there. I spent 18 years in the army and I've never seen nothing like this.
Well, come on in.
I'm at the Royal Plaza. That's how it happened, didn't it, Sergeant? I mean, I reported it at once, didn't I? I heard her body fall and just as I walked into the courtyard.
Luckily, I was in Curzon Street at the time.
You thought she'd committed suicide? By the way, what's your name?
Steele, sir. Jeremy Steele.
And you say, Mr. Steele, that she lived in the penthouse?
That's right, sir. Wonderful view it is up there, sir. Not that she'll be able to enjoy it anymore, poor thing.
The dress she's wearing looks as though it cost a pretty penny. How long has she been occupying the penthouse, Mr. Steele?
About a year, sir. I remember when she first come into the place, money was no object to her. That you could see. We had an advert, penthouse to let, and this Indian Raja, he went back to his own country, see, and I was told by the letting agents to show people around. 400 quid a month, and that's no food, mark you, sir. Just to live here. And when I told her, she didn't turn an ear. This sergeant seems to think it was murder. I don't. I think she'd had one over the 8. 23 years of age, and you've never seen anyone so wild.
All right, Sergeant. Why do you think it was murder?
Well, sir, judging by all these broken bones and the way all the windows are closed, she must have fallen from the roof, but she'd have to be pushed. I mean, she couldn't just leap down.
Why on earth not?
Well, sir, look at that canopy sticking out there. She'd have fallen straight onto that canopy on the 10th floor.
By the same token, were she thrown from the roof, the canopy would break her fall.
No, sir, no, not if she were thrown head first. Then she'd come tumbling over. If you'll excuse me for saying so, sir, there's a distinct mark on the edge of the canopy on the 10th floor. That's where her heels were caught. And if you look at the back of the poor girl's heels, you can see where all the skin's been grazed.
When did you find all this out, Sergeant?
Just while I was waiting for you, sir.
I see. You say her name's Cynthia Dickinson.
That's right, sir.
Who pays the rent? She got a boyfriend or a sugar daddy or something?
Oh, nothing like that here, sir. This ground belongs to church commissioners. Very careful the developers have to be.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the roof.
If you come over here, sir, you'll see where the dust has been disturbed.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, the walls have been roughened up. All this fine dust. Now, if she tried to leap from this parapet, there'd be some footsteps, wouldn't there?
Quite true. And immediately beneath us is the canopy. Very well done, Sergeant Blake. Very well done indeed.
Thank you, sir. Pity this roof is all marble.
Well, you wouldn't find any dust here. It's hosed down every evening.
And I take it these French windows lead into the penthouse?
That's right, Gov. I still say it's suicide. What with the windows been open like that?
Well, let's go in, shall we? The penthouse, or apartment, whatever one would like to call it, was indeed the epitome of luxurious living. Obviously, the living room, the bedroom, dressing room and bathroom had been furnished in the most elaborately costly modern fashion. Just outside, a huge sunshade stood guard over what was obviously the remains of the poor girl's breakfast. Oh, there's nothing wrong with this young woman's appetite. 2 eggs, toast, coffee. Who served this?
It comes up from downstairs, sir. Look, no one would come up here to murder the girl. Why should they?
That's the question that's been asked since Robert Peel founded the police force. What time did the girl have breakfast, do you know?
Oh, I wouldn't know that, sir. Better ask them downstairs.
Mademoiselle, she came down for breakfast at 8 o'clock this morning.
Did you deliver the breakfast?
Yes, sir.
Where was Miss Dickinson? Did you see her, or was she in the bedroom or the bathroom, or what?
She outside reading the morning paper.
What time did you deliver the breakfast?
We take us 10, maybe 15 minutes.
You're saying you delivered the young lady's breakfast at 8:15?
Yes.
What's the usual procedure? When do you remove the remains of the breakfast?
When Miss Dickinson, she telephoned. We cannot enter an apartment without permission, you understand.
That explains the debris at 11 o'clock.
Pardon, sir?
Oh, never mind. Sergeant Blake, you're a man with an observant eye. Now that I've taken a look at the canopy, I agree with you. The girl was dragged over the parapet and thrown. I see that the constable stays with the body. I want the penthouse sealed until I've had a chance to go through the girl's personal effects. I'm going to have a talk with the people who manage the Royal Plaza.
But Miss Dickinson was the only child of Sir Percival Dickinson, Dickinson Steel Mills. It was Sir Percival who negotiated the renting of the penthouse.
Well, have you his address?
Yes, I have it here somewhere. Oh, yes, here we are. Sir Percival Dickinson, Denham Hall, Suffolk. Here's the London address, sir. Their offices are in Cheapside.
I'm sorry to be the harbinger of such dreadful news, Sir Percival.
She's all we had. I knew that she was slipping away from us, that we represented a way of life Cynthia scorned, but to die like that...
I'm afraid I'm going to have to probe, ask seemingly impertinent questions. But if your daughter was murdered... Oh, I must be candid and say we cannot rule out the possibility of suicide.
Suicide? Inspector Carr, my daughter was wild, had some atrocious friends, insisted on living in London, but she wouldn't commit suicide. Why should she? Overindulgent parents, perhaps? Perhaps if I'd taken her at her word, not given her a penny, this might not have happened. Who would want to murder my Cynthia?
That's what we're going to find out, sir. When did you see her last?
Last weekend. To my agreeable surprise, Cynthia descended upon us with some musician, or so he called himself, a man she introduced as Spike Hanning.
Hanning? Did you say Spike Hanning? Thin, rangy-looking man with a moustache like a Chinese mandarin's and a wine birthmark in his cheek?
Yes. One of the most repulsive individuals I've ever met. Kept referring to me as Daddy-O, although my daughter assured me that he was a rather brilliant songwriter.
Well, if he wrote any songs, he must have done his composing while he was in jail. Until 6 months ago, Leonard Hanning, alias Spike, was serving his prison sentence. He got 5 years for stabbing a rival club owner. Now, I wonder what the connection is between Mr. Hanning and your daughter being thrown from the top of the Royal Plaza. A highly rhetorical question, yet rational when one takes into consideration the manner of the girl's death and the manner of Spike Hanning's way of life. Of course, the bereaved father read more into it than I'd intended.
You think that this specimen called Spike Hanning had something to do with my daughter's murder?
I don't know. I really don't know. But one doesn't expect to find a thug like Hanning consorting with the young ladies of your daughter's background. But I mean to find out. Go in.
All right, get through.
What is this? Why am I being hounded? What's this about Cynthia Dickinson?
All right, thank you, Sergeant. Take a seat, Hanning.
Why have I been picked up? I've done me time, haven't I? I've got framed once. So you cops trying to frame me again?
You never were a good actor, Spike Hanning. Don't pretend you haven't read the midday edition of the paper. Well, aren't you going to shed any tears for the death of Cynthia Dickinson?
Now listen, Chief. OK, so I've got mixed up with things now and again, but not murder. Says in the stop press that foul play was suspected, and when you cops say that, you mean murder. She wanted to be with the scene. She was a swinging chick. She liked being with the boys and the other Sheilas. I was teaching her to play the guitar.
Is that all you taught her, to play the guitar? Didn't teach her the delights of the needle or sniffing snow?
You've got no right to talk to me like that.
I'll talk to you the way I like. I haven't forgotten what happened to a certain girl known as Peggy Alice. You got away with that one, didn't you? You were too smart for us. When did you see Cynthia last?
She took me down to see her folks. Real nice people. Class.
What did you do? Case the joint? Did you ask Cynthia whether there were any loose windows or locks?
Are you arresting me? Because if you are, there's nothing I can do about it.
It depends. You say you haven't seen Cynthia Dickinson since the two of you went to Denham Hall.
That's right. In fact, we aren't going to see each other again either.
Why?
Well, she turned nasty. There I was, treating her like a real...
Treating who like a gentleman?
You know what I mean, Governor. Me. I was being a gentleman. Just thought I'd say good night. You know, when I was at Denham Hall.
Oh, who's that?
Shh. Don't get scared. It's me, Spike.
Oh, what do you want? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Go back to bed.
Oh, you look real lovely lying there like that, baby. Real lovely. You know you switched me on, don't you? As soon as I saw you at that club, I thought, that's for me. That's going to be my Sheila. You know you'd go for me, don't you?
Oh, Spike Hanning, if you don't leave this room at once, I'll ring the bell, and if my father sees you...
Come on, baby, you wouldn't risk a scandal.
Wouldn't I? Father!
Yeah, what are you doing? You gone crazy or something? I know a million birds who are dying for my protection.
Oh, good. I can hear my father now.
me, baby. You're crazy. I put it to you, Governor. What's a guy to think when a bird says, come and spend a weekend at my place?
On the morning, what happened then?
She says to her dad, Mr. Hanning has an urgent engagement in London. I got the message, so I scarfed it.
And you haven't seen her since?
No, I haven't.
Where were you between the hours of 8 and 11 on Sunday morning? Now, don't tell me you went to church, because I'm not that gullible.
Sunday morning, I was sleeping. I was in my flat.
Can anyone corroborate your alibi?
No. I didn't get up until 12. Well, I was at Max's club until 4 o'clock in the morning.
All right, Spike, you can go now. But don't think I've finished with you, and don't try to leave London, because if you do, we'll pull you in and book you. Sergeant, see this so-called guitarist out and get the office fumigated.
Ha, ha, ha. Very funny.
Come on, you, come on.
I'll take your hand.
Come on.
Me, small fry.
Operations here.
Well, no news from next branch?
Oh, yes, sir. I was just about to telephone you, sir. Cynthia Dickinson, known to associate with the Balham mob, sir, was seen on Saturday night at the Silver Slipper run by Mother Herrick.
Well, 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 don't look round now, but something tells me the lies here. We're clean, Chief Inspector, fully licensed, no rooms upstairs, and the card games are on the level. A long time no see. Oh, don't tell me, I'll tell you.
What are you going to tell me, Mother Herrick?
That sweet, sweet child, Cynthia Dickinson. Oh, have a drink. And don't tell me not while you're on duty. I knew you when you were still pounding the beat. Now, what'll you have?
Oh, half a pint, since you insist. How much do you know, Ma Herrick?
Only what I read. Oh, she was a wild one, that girl. But I tell you this, she got her kicks from mixing with the tearaways, but there was nothing kinky. If you're looking for dope, no sir. I reckon she was just a poor little rich girl, bored with respectability, and never had enough wickedness inside her to go too far downhill.
She was here on Saturday night?
That's right.
Who with?
Oh, with the mob, the Balham bunch. They came together and they left together.
Was she with someone special?
No. Oh, now let me see. There was, there were 5 guys, Cynthia, and another girl. Oh, where they went from here, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I do. They went to Cynthia's place.
You sure?
Well, they were playing one of the tables, and it was her lucky night. Won well over 1,000, she did. Oh, I'll come on to my place, she said, and then they all left the club. Well, why don't you ask Tony Morelli?
Come in. Yes?
All right, Tony. Ready to answer a few questions?
I think you are too big to get mixed up in this kind of thing. Come in.
You know why I'm here?
Well, sit down.
Yep.
You lay a charge?
Who? Hey, what are you talking about? Did you go back to Cynthia Dickinson's place on Saturday night? Did you go alone, or did the whole mob go?
You're talking crazy. We now go to Cynthia's place. We get into a taxi, and suddenly Cynthia say, if you don't mind, I hit the hay. We celebrate some other time.
Celebrate?
She win £1,150, all in hard cash. £200 was mine, but I don't mind. She a great girl.
Where'd you get your taxi? From outside the Silver Slipper?
You are a great cop, sure. The taxi man will tell you he dropped the gang off at the Rendezvous Club. We go for one more game, and she go on alone.
Then why did you ask me about a charge? Who's laying a charge?
Spike. Anyone who is with me has my protection. No one touches our girls. Cynthia, she tell me what Spike Hanning do, or, to make a correction, try to do. Have you seen him lately?
Why do you ask?
Well, let us say he met with an accident. He fell down. His jaw is broken. They tell me he has to have 8 stitches in his face. You get the message.
If you're trying to tell me that...
Tell you? Me, Tony Morelli, tell a cop something? You must be joking.
All right, Tony. Who do you think did it?
I don't know. I wish I knew. Okay, she was a good-time girl. She like a swinging time, but she have class, great class. And if I knew who threw her from that roof, I personally, Tony Morelli...
Skip it, Tony. But if you do think of something, you can get me at the yard. Car?
Operations here, Inspector.
Yes.
Dr. McPherson's compliments, sir. Autopsy shows death occurred at approximately 10 a.m. Every indication that she was rendered unconscious and then thrown, sir.
Okay, Ops. Check on the taxi that picked up Tony Morelli and his mob, as well as Cynthia Dickinson outside the Silver Slipper at approximately 2 a.m.
Will do, sir.
Get hold of Sergeant Blake. Tell him I want him to accompany me to the dead girl's apartment. All right, Constable, you can go. There's been someone on guard night and day?
Yes, sir.
Open up, please, Mr. Steele.
Right.
Oh, last time I took a look round here, there was no apparent signs of burglary. Valuable jewels on the dressing table, expensive furs in the wardrobe. But there's one thing, Sergeant, we didn't find, and that was money.
Yes, it's all down on the list. 2 fivers and some coins.
No, Sergeant Blake. I mean real money, the sort of money a big-time girl like Cynthia Dickinson would have. Now, I take it you've been in this apartment quite a number of times, Mr. Steele.
Oh, yes.
Who does the cleaning, that sort of thing?
Oh, this place is cleaned thoroughly every day. Of course, being luxury apartments, our girls do it to the convenience of the tenant.
I see. Did you speak to Miss Dickinson on Sunday morning?
Did I speak to her?
Yes. Well, I don't mean on the telephone. Did you see her, talk to her on Sunday morning? Well, did you?
Well, yes, I came up to ask her if she'd like the Sunday newspapers. They don't deliver on Sundays. I go and get it from outside the railway station.
What time was it, Mr. Steele?
Oh, about 8 o'clock, before she had her breakfast.
I see. I'd like you to think very carefully, Mr. Steele. Did you not go up in the lift later than 8 o'clock?
Well, yes, I did.
What did you do with the money?
Money? What money?
We know that Cynthia Dickinson had over £1,000 in her possession when the taxi dropped her off at the Royal Plaza. Now, where is it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I only hope for your sake that your ignorance is justified. Sergeant Blake,
Sir?
I want you to go through Mr. Steele's flat with the tooth comb. You're looking for over £1,000 in banknotes.
You can't do that. You can't do that without a search warrant.
But we have a search warrant, Mr. Steele. All right, Blake, off you go.
No.
I shouldn't find your balance if I were you, Mr. Steele. I don't think your physique is up to it.
Oh, no.
A clumsy murder, trying to make it look like suicide. A girl of 23, and you murder her for the sake of £1,000.
The money's down there. He'll find it. I must have been mad, but it wasn't the money, not really. She found out about the other thing, the drinks and that, and she said to me...
You must think I'm very stupid, Mr. Steele. There was a perfectly good bottle of Mouton Rothschild in that cabinet. Most of it is gone. And those cigarettes I left in the bathroom, I planted them there for you. How long have you been stealing from me, Mr. Steele? Because you won't steal again. I'm going to telephone the agents first thing tomorrow morning.
No, Miss Dickinson. Please don't. Mrs. is weak, Art. It'll kill her.
Oh, you should have thought of that before you started with your petty thievery. How many other tenants have you been stealing from? You snivelling little idiot.
Am I? Snivelling? I didn't know what I was doing. She was lying on the floor and I had this paperweight in my hand. I dragged her to the end of the roof and I threw her over the top.
Has the money been deposited in security, Sergeant?
Oh, yes. Well, he signed a full confession. I suppose it was the missing money that put you onto the caretaker.
No, that made him a strong suspect, that's all. I was certain he was the killer. Don't you remember? Well, listeners, what should Sergeant Blake have remembered? Do you know what made me convinced that the porter had killed Miss Dickinson?
I heard her body fall as I walked into the courtyard.
And then he tells us he ran out into the street to go to a police station, and there was Sergeant Blake. Now, this took place at 10 minutes past 11, and yet the autopsy showed that death occurred at approximately 10 o'clock, a vital difference of 1 hour. Why the delay? The chance for Steele to wipe clean the murder weapon and the marble floor on the roof. What he overlooked was the parapet containing the telltale clues, thanks to Sergeant Blake. I'm happy to tell you that Blake was promoted, and Steele received the punishment he deserved.
The epic Casebook was produced by Michael Silver with Hugh Russ as Inspector Carr. Listen again next Thursday night at 9:30 to another exciting story from our epic Casebook.